What would you really expect for $400 in sim racing today? I mean, I guess you could put it in a piggy bank jar and start saving up for a decent wheelbase. Or perhaps you could get a pretty decent pedal set for $400, but you're still going to need something to hold on to. Well, maybe you'll buy a really fancy steering wheel and just hang it up on the wall so you could admire it. $400 doesn't always get you very far in sim racing today. But today, I introduce to you the all-new Moza Racing R3 Racing Bundle. This is a true starter package that starts out at $400. This is the new racing bundle that is specifically designed for new sim racers or Xbox racers in particular. This is by Moza Racing, and Moza has been on quite a pace for quite some time, coming out with the R12, the R9, the R5, the R16, the R21, and now it's the R3, a 3.8 Newton meter direct drive wheel that has Xbox compatibility. This is the first of any of the new manufacturers to offer Xbox compatibility built into their wheel, and it's something great to see. As I mentioned in the intro, the R3 bundle goes for $400. That gets you a wheelbase, a wheel rim, and a pedal set, everything you need to be up and running in sim racing, whether you're on the Xbox or the PC. And yes, this little tiny base, it's only like 5 by 4 by 3 inches. It does put out 3.8 Newton meters of power, which is quite amazing from such a small base. And you can see that it really does resemble the previous models, the R5, the R9, and the R12 in particular, with that matte black finish and the X shape with the little cooling fins. It truly is the Minnie Mouse of the industry. It is the smallest base that I've ever tested. Along with the bundle comes the ES Racing wheel. It's the same wheel that is in the R5 bundle, a slightly different wheel rim, and the Xbox button, there it is. That makes it distinctly different, but it is pretty much the same wheel rim, which on its own goes for $129 and features that NRG 10 ball bearing quick release, as well as a small rev bar, paddle shifters, a whole bunch of buttons in various shapes with a certain Xbox controller flair to them. At your feet with the R3 bundle come the SRP Lite Pedals. It is a basic 2-pedal set that use springs for resistance and Hall effect sensors for tracking their movement. When I'm reviewing an entire simulator package and I'm out on track, the first thing I think about is really the steering wheel, and it's because it's the first thing I touch and it's what's right in my face while I'm driving, and it doesn't mean it's the most important. The R3 bundle comes with the same ES wheel rim that the R5 bundle came with, but this one is slightly different than the previous version. So this time we're looking at a 270mm wheel with a flat bottom, and it has a rubberized finish. It's a hard rubber. It has a little bit of a grippy texture, so it's not too slippery, which is nice, and it is comfortable in that 9 and 3 ergonomic positions. It's got a nice aluminum tri-spoke for the backbone, so it is a rigid steering wheel. It has these nice little accents. Now you can see the button layout is very much like what you'd expect on an Xbox controller, with the D-pad and the traditional A, X, Y, and B buttons. And the thing about the buttons is they're very gamey, as I like to call them. They're like the same kind of buttons you'd expect on a controller, not necessarily the kind you'd see on a very high-end steering wheel, but it works out, and the layout is pretty good, and you have good amount of access to a fair amount of buttons while driving. I will say that, and it's nice. You got the cool little Moza badge in the middle. You've got 2 extra buttons here, and this being the new one, this being the Xbox button, and then you have some other familiar Xbox controls like LSB, RSB. Flipping it over onto the back, it is a plastic back like most wheels we see today, and it has these metal paddle shifters, which you can see are just kind of shaped. They're not like bolted on, they're just shaped metal, and you can hear that traditional springy click of an internal switch. Certainly not magnetic shifters, but they get the job done and they feel good. You can hear the click and you can see the amount of travel. It's pretty reasonable. The great thing about this steering wheel, it really makes it amazing for $129, is the NRG style quick release. So you're talking about a super strong, super rigid connection with the base. Between that and the backbone of this aluminum tri-spoke for $129, this is a very, very rigid steering wheel. And you get the beautiful click sound of putting it on your wheelbase. The next focus of my attention is at my feet. To be even more specific, it's my left foot or the brake pedal. So let's talk about the 2-pedal SRP Lite pedals. I've used and tested these pedals before, and here they are in this combo once again. I really have to keep in mind that this is only a $400 package because these pedals can feel primitive to the seasoned racer. And tested these pedals before, and here they are in this combo once again. I really have to keep in mind that this is only a $400 package because these pedals can feel primitive to the seasoned racer. Looking at these pedals raises my expectations as they are made entirely of metal, and you can adjust the pedals left and right to any kind of spacing, including wide enough to almost be like go-karting, and I do love that. You can even move the pedal faces up and down, and you can even individually mount the pedals, which brings in the possibility of inversion. On top of that, the gas pedal has a good amount of resistance and a good amount of throw to it. It moves about 3 inches at full throw, which is great. And then there is the brake pedal. Oh, to be back on a simple spring brake pedal. Okay, let's take our shoes off. Now, for those of you who are new to sim racing, this brake pedal has a heavier spring than the gas, which is nice, and the same 3 inches long of travel, which is fine, but far more than I like. It takes a little bit of time to get the exact amount of distance to match the in-game amount of braking. There will be times where you stab the brake a bit too hard, and times that you just don't press it hard enough for fear of locking up the brakes. But like anything in life, practice makes perfect, and with enough laps, you will learn those distances and be very competitive. This is the first thing that I would upgrade if I was running this combination. The overall stiffness and strength of the pedals is really good for an inexpensive set of pedals. Way nicer than a set of pedals that are thrown in with most plastic-based wheels at this price point. And I would have the same gripes on all of those brake pedals as well. I guess you could say that we saved the best for last. Let's talk about the Moza Racing R3 base. You can see it's the exact same shape as the R5, the R9, and the R12. That same X shape. It's that same black matte finish. It's got the Moza Racing logos on it. It's just so much smaller. It's got the same NRG style quick release that we talked about. So you've got the quick wireless connection to all the wheels. And then on the back, you've got your USB, your power. It's got a plug-in for the pedals, which will work with any of the Moza pedals. It's got a plug-in for the shifter, the handbrake. It's even got a plug-in point for an emergency stop and the optional dash, one of the many upgrades you can make, including the 2 little threaded holes on top of the base in order to mount that dash to this base, all in this tiny, tiny little base. I mean, it's only like 5 inches tall, 4 inches wide, like 3.5 deep. It's a miniature little base, but the R3 does develop 3.8 Newton meters of power, which in the direct drive world is pretty low, but is right about the same amount of power as the T300 and G29, or even that the Club Sport base produces. Arguably, for sim racing, this has been enough for decades prior to the DD explosion. The R3 actually surprised me with its power. I did think it was going to feel weak, coming down from a 10 to 15 Newton meter wheel. It was also one of the fastest and smoothest turning wheels that I've driven in a while. So once I settled down and smoothed out a bit to match the wheel's power, I found it to be a great driving experience. There are moments in sim racing that we actually subject ourselves to stronger forces than we actually need. Yes, that added fighting of the wheel over curbing or through chicanes might be more realistic, but it also forces us to make more micro adjustments offsetting the force feedback. On a lighter wheel, such as this, those curbing hits are more of a feel of vibration with a hint of the wheel's directional pull. It allows me to recognize that the curbing is doing something without overreacting, fighting the wheel's power. It might be less realistic, but this could actually be arguably faster at times. Getting back to the power of the wheel, on paper the R3 base is no stronger than those other wheels that I mentioned. However, there are times when I'm driving that I'd swear it actually is more powerful, and I think that's a sum of all of the parts. So 3.8 Newton meters from the base, but a very rigid steering shaft. You've got the NRG quick release, which has zero flex whatsoever, and then the ES wheel rim, which for a $400 package is remarkably rigid and stiff, and the end result being a wheel that flexes much less than most of those other wheels that I just named, and it does make the feel of the force feedback actually stronger. You don't have that damping or that delay because of the flex. It gets you right away and it gives you full power. It really is an amazing little base. One of the greatest features of the R3 bundle, and one of the reasons it's now my favorite starter kit available, is its upgradability. So when you start off with a $400 kit, it's a great kit right out of the gate for $400, but it does have its flaws. But you can upgrade so many things and make it such a better kit than it stands here today. So let's just say that you're kind of more of a Formula One kind of guy. Well, for starters, I didn't like the way the brake pedal is super linear and super long travel. They make their brake mod, 30 bucks. You get a heavier spring, shorter, heavier spring, along with a elastomer bumper, and it makes it for a dual stage brake, and it actually makes it a shorter distance. So it's gonna be much more performance, much more like probably twice the performance, and more like a Formula One feel than this brake here. And then you could add the ES Formula rim mod, which is 40 bucks. You have to unbolt this original wheel, and this bolts right on. But now, between a stiffer brake and a nicer, not nicer, but a Formula One style rim, you've got a great Formula One style package, and we've only added $70 to the total. Or let's say that you're more of a NASCAR or oval or rally type driver and you want a larger round width rim. Well, you can go ahead and add the 12-inch mod. It is $80 upgrade. I'd still recommend doing the performance brake mod, and that is another $30, so $110 upgrade, but you've totally changed things to more of a roundy round oval style or rally style driving, which is a great upgrade for that. And then you might think, hey, if I'm oval racing, I want to be able to shift. Well, you can go ahead and get the clutch. That's a $40 upgrade. Now you're using a clutch, and you could throw in the H pattern shifter too, $149 upgrade. So we've kind of stepped things up a little bit, but now we've gone to a complete rally oval H pattern style, including the clutch style. So let's add it up. We've got an $80 rim, $30 brake mod, $40 clutch, plus a $150 shifter, or $300 in upgrades, taking it to $700, but a completely different package. And then what would rally car driving be without a handbrake? Yep, got to throw in the handbrake as well. All right, that is another $100. But look at how much we have transformed or changed or given a total facelift makeover to this entire package. But we're not done. You can still do more. You've got the CM dash, sure, $160 more, but now you've got a full color digital display right there on the front of your wheelbase, all within the same. And the beauty of all of this is it all plugs into the same base, meaning it's only one USB going into your computer, which is quite amazing. Now, we're still not done, because the other nice thing about this, and the part of the upgradability, I guess you could say, is that we're still within the Moza ecosystem. So this base is going to work with, for example, the FSR rim. So this is a substantial upgrade to a $400 package, and you can see we almost could pay for all of this before we've gotten this rim. And at that point, sure, you might be thinking to yourself it's time to upgrade the base itself. But the beauty of the whole thing is it took you from a $400 starter package and gave you all these different options and directions and upgradability before you even have to think about or look at the base itself. One thing we haven't talked about so far is the Xbox compatibility, and I have to tell you, This is as big a deal as anything else that we could talk about on the R3 combo, and it's something that people have been waiting for a very, very long time. Console compatibility out of some of these new manufacturers, and it takes Moza Racing right into that level with Thrustmaster, Logitech, and Fanatec. And as much as I am a PC racer, this is the kind of starter package that I could easily recommend to drivers who are racing on the Xbox and someday want to transfer to PC racing. This wheel will take them a long way into their journey before they need to upgrade. The only downside is that the settings are all controlled by the game instead of through the Moza Pithouse software, which is a little limiting, but it will still take your Xbox driving to a new level and even allow you to use an H-pattern shifter on the Xbox. You could even throw in the handbrake too if you wanted, and there is no comparing running Forza with a hand controller to running it with a wheel. This is a very good setup that will completely change this game and other Xbox driving titles forever. Granted, the force feedback is not as good as it is on the PC, but again, how do you even compare this to a controller or to a lightweight wheel? It gives you so much more precision when turning into the corners, and even though these are only a spring-based pedal set, it still gives you so much more braking than when trying to do it with your trigger fingers. I can tell you, this setup is going to improve your lap times by over a full second, more likely 2 or 3. It's that much better. That should tell you everything that you need to know about the Moza Racing R3 Bundle, and I hopefully have answered any questions that you might have about it. But to make things perfectly clear, we're going to go ahead and break it down with the good, the not so good, and the bottom line, starting off with the good, and that being, this is my favorite starter kit. Xbox compatible. Best wheel-base combo for under $400. Includes pedals. Smooth turning. Good force feedback. Very rigid for a sub $400 wheel. Wireless wheel. Upgradable setup. Included desk mount. USB saver. Everything on one plug. Moza ecosystem. Lower force feedback. Good for children or younger drivers. And now on to the not so good. The pedals are kind of basic. Buttons on the wheel are controller type, or kind of cheap. And now on to the bottom line. The Moza Racing R3 Bundle is now my preferred recommended starter package for Xbox or PC sim racers. It doesn't matter. Bang for buck, it's really hard to beat this combination, and any fault that I could actually find with it, they've addressed. They make upgrades that are available to do it. A stiffer brake pedal, different shaped wheel rims, upgrading your entire package all the way around as part of the Moza ecosystem. And having Moza making a true Xbox compatible wheel is something, again, we've been asking for a very long time. It is, I hate using words or cliches like game changer, but it really is a game changer, because as we've seen new companies come onto the horizon, many of them have failed to go in the direction of consoles. It makes me wonder, can we expect a PS or a PlayStation version of a wheel coming from Moza? I can only hope so, and I can tell you that it only makes me that much more excited about Forza Motorsport, knowing that I could drive it on a direct drive wheelbase. This is the entry point for many sim racers, and it will allow them to switch from controllers to wheels and get a quality setup at a reasonable price. And that takes me to my main point, which I've addressed throughout this review, that being the Moza ecosystem. Going back many reviews, that was actually listed something on the not so good list because it was very restrictive and you didn't have a lot of freedom of selection of choice. And now so many options, so many upgrades available, and the ability to even race on the Xbox, I have to say the Moza ecosystem is now a good thing. So that should do it, our review of the Moza Racing R3 Bundle. I hope that you enjoyed it. I know that I did. It sure did open up my eyes, and I'm glad to see that a company is really going after that beginner market, offering a good package for a reasonable price to starters in sim racing. Be sure to give this show a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can get a notification when our next video comes out, and thank you for watching. This is the Simpit. I'm Sean Cole, and I'll see you on the track.